Hey YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Rudy coming at you with another video. Here we are doing the versatility series on the 2022 Stumpjumper. And real quick, while I got your attention, don't forget guys, still trying to get to that 500 subscribers. If I'm already at 500, help me get to 1,000. Click that subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you know whenever I'm getting a new video coming out or whenever a new video comes out. And let me know what you guys think about this video so far down in the comments. Give me the thumbs up if you don't mind too, really appreciate it. Now with that all out of the way, I want to give you guys my initial impressions on the Stumpjumper and a Mullet setup at 64 degrees on the head tube angle. And if you didn't already see my video with the full 29er setup at 64 degrees, go and check that out too, because there are definitely some similarities, but there are some differences as well that I'm going to get into a little bit later in the video. But for right now, I just want to give you guys my initial impressions on the bike. And I love it. I don't know what it is about this 64 degree head tube angle on this bike, but it was one of my favorites in the full 29er. And I really think that it's my favorite in the Mullet setup as well. Yes, the bottom bracket is lower and the bike stretched out a little bit more, but what you get in terms of the characteristics of it far outweigh the negatives that you get putting the bike in this head tube angle. But my initial impressions are the bike climbs really well. It handles most of the techie stuff just as well as the 64 degree head tube angle. Excuse me, I don't know where that came from. Just as well as a 64.5 degree head tube angle Mullet setup. But I think in certain situations it actually handles the climbs better. I think maybe the techier climbs, yes, but overall I think this climbs better. And I think it might have something to do with whenever you flip the chip in the rear, it gains just 4 little millimeters of chainstay growth. That's it. And I don't know if that is what has to do with it and why it feels so good on the climbs and in turns, and just overall it feels really good. Definitely feel that, you know, the bike's stretched out. I mean, you can still, you know, it feels longer, but it doesn't feel like a handful to manage when going around steep techie like berms and not berms, switchbacks, you know, coming up the hill. I just can't put my finger on exactly what it is that makes this bike so damn good in the 64 degree head tube angle. It's just that specialized magic, that fairy dust that they throw on. I don't know. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that it's good. And I think that it's a better, more efficient, more comfortable climber than in the 64.5 degree head tube angle. And just to let you guys know a little bit more on the experience that I have in this head tube angle, I couldn't wait to switch to the Mullet setup, because I had, of course, the link, and I had my wheels and tires, and I was going to Trestle Bike Park, and I thought, what better time to, you know, try out the steeper head tube angles and the Mullet, because I already ridden the bike earlier in the year in the full 29er and absolutely loved it, thought it was great, you know. But knowing that I was going to a bike park, it just made sense to try it out in the Mullet, right? Anyways, absolutely love it. It blew me away how much better it handles the corners. Like the very first corner, the very first berm that I hit at Trestle, I knew that it was going to be great. I knew that I was going to like it because it just felt more fun. It felt like you could get in and out of the corners faster. You could break that rear loose a little bit easier to like drift and like slap berms. And that just makes the bike more fun, you know? And I don't know personally if it's faster if I was racing down one of the trails. It certainly feels faster, especially going around the corners. And I've mentioned that throughout this series with the Mullet setup. It definitely feels faster in and out of the corners. And you know, they say that's where races are won. But overall, my initial impressions, it's comfortable. It corners really well, especially in the flats. And the climbing ability really, in techie terrain, really isn't that much hindered from 64.5. This little area here is kind of like the first, I don't know, somewhat difficult technical section. It's got some spots where the tires can kind of get hung up in. And I just, before I get too far, I just want to mention this about the climbing at 64 degrees on the Mullet. It really seems to get hung up less. The suspension is more active, but I swear it climbs better than 64.5. I swear. I'm on the same trail and it just feels better, even though the suspension is more active, and I don't feel like I'm using more energy to do it. I swear at this head tube angle, that it feels more, it definitely feels like the 64 degree head tube angle with the full 29er, but it feels more alive, more, I don't know, more maneuverable, more agile. It feels like a more agile 64 degree than the 29er on the climb so far. I don't know what it is, but when you want to get on the gas, it really feels very, very springy. How else do I say it without using just more common words? It feels, the agility is definitely up a notch. Like whenever I want to sprint up something like this, like, or bump this, like whenever I want to spin the wheel to create momentum, it's way easier to do it, and it's easier, way easier to maintain. Does that make sense? All right, this next section up here is you know, it's just one of those sections where you just need to find that gear and just keep spinning, and you'll make it through everything just fine. But there is, depending on what line choice you take, you definitely have to watch the rocks, and that way you don't catch a pedal. And being that the bottom bracket is 7 millimeters lower, I just want to see, while you guys watch, if I catch a pedal or not. So here we go. And I am in that 10th gear, which really seems to work good for this bike. Am I in 10? Oh no, I'm in 9. Here, we'll go to 10. Here's 10. The thing that I found that I like the most about this head tube angle and Mullet while climbing is that to keep the pedals going, it spins up really, really nice. And charge this, little bit of wheel slippage there, pop that, switch back. But this really, I didn't catch my pedals at all, by the way, at all. This head tube angle, this is really good in 29er or Mullet. 64 degrees, a little bit more active suspension. As you can see, I'm not quite all the way open on my fork, and I am not firmed on the shocks. So this bike really actually just, generally it just climbs really well. It definitely climbs better in some of the other head tube angles, but this thing's pretty damn good. kind of expected to catch a pedal there and there. Not there. How about this stuff up here? Nope. Just gonna charge right at this. Oh, slammed a pedal in the ground there and there. Oh, ooh. Nicked the pedal there and charging up this pretty hard and trying to keep the cranks going. I slammed the bottom of the crank arm down and I just scraped a rock on a pedal. All right, let's get the subject of climbing out of the way. 64 degrees, mullet setup. I really don't mind climbing on this bike at this head tube angle. Yeah, your bottom bracket drops 7 millimeters. Yeah, the bike gets a little bit longer, but that's it. You know, once you get your seat position where you really like it, once you get your handlebars really where you really like it, the bike is so comfortable to climb. It's ridiculous at 64 how well this bike climbs. I think that this bike climbs better than 64.5. I really do. I think that 64.5 does handle the tech, like the slow tech and the steep tech, a little bit better, just a tiny bit better. But I think you could really combat that if this was your everyday climbing machine, enduro / trail bike. Lock it out and you're going to get up those steeper, techier stuff, maybe the stuff that's got the ledges that are a little bit taller, or your bottom bracket might get caught, or you might pedal strike or something every once in a while a little bit more. Man, once you hear about the performance of this bike going down, or you see the performance of this bike going down, like those little minute problems that you have disappear, because the bike, I think, rides the best at 64 flat. I really do. That's my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So we're going to take this bike down a black, take you guys down probably my favorite, second favorite black. But this trail is a bit tougher to like keep your flow. Oh, are we making mistakes here? It's not the place you want to be. Oh shit. Hit the bottom bracket, guys. That was a tough one. Or not the bottom bracket, but the bash guard for sure. Shouldn't have been going that slow anyways. Ooh. I gotta put these on. Eyes are starting to water. There we go. Back to it. Try to keep the flow here. Like I said, this trail's kind of tough to keep the flow on. Whew, almost washed out in some damn sand. Sucked. You know what I do like about the 27.5 in the rear, the mullet setup, is how fast the rear wheel spins back up to speed. That is definitely something that I've noticed in all of the that's something I've noticed in all the head tube angles. 63, 63.5, 64.5, and 64.0. Whew, that was a tough one. Oh, that was terrible. That was a terrible line. Could have hit that little jump, kept my flow going a little better. See, I pedaled over all that right there, and that's some pretty gnar chunk. This here, pedaling through this. I stopped pedaling a long time ago, just to let you guys know. Oh, sand. Pedal. Oh, I always end up down here. It's so off camber. Stupid. Lost my flow, like I said. This one is definitely a techier. It's black, but it's like a flow tech. Like, you could really handle it good if you just keep your flow going. That is the name of the game on this trail. Lost my flow. To pedal up that. And that's about the last tough negotiating. Oh no, wait, this up here. I always forget about this. Have to keep some momentum and pop. Half crank. Oh, I got it. No, I didn't. Had to put my foot down. Anyways, that is about the last of the flow tech that this trail has to offer. But what I want to mention, if I'm going to use this, I probably should use this footage, is that as far as enduro bikes go and the way that they feel as far as being more plush than a trail bike, this feels the most like it. Let's finish this up with everybody's favorite talk, which is the downhill. This bike at 64 degrees in the Mullet, I feel like is my favorite way to take this bike downhill. The characteristics of it is like a really poppy enduro bike. I mean, the suspension feels really soft. It's very active. It sits you more in the middle of the bike by design. Whenever you go around the corners, it just feels the most like sunken into and turn in and turn out. When you get back on the pedals, it feels so quick on the pedals. Whenever you're going over rougher, faster sections, the small bump compliance, especially when pedaling, is so reactive. Like, it just works so good that I can't really compare it to anything. I need to get another enduro bike, because the biggest enduro bike that I have is my Norco Range, and that bike, above and beyond all other bikes, goes down, like, out of all the other enduro bikes that I've ridden, just goes down so good, and including when pedaling, even on that bike. But it's heavy, so it's really hard to compare it to a trail slash enduro bike. It's really hard to categorize this bike in the first place, I think, because it's a 150, 160 travel bike. It can do all of the things, and it can do all the things really well. And being able to slacken out the head tube angle is just so cool and ridiculous that you can go down to 63 degrees on the head tube angle. Like, anybody else do that? Anybody else? No, nobody else does that. This bike, to me, I feel is probably the best of all at 64 degrees in either the Mullet or the 29er. I think that would determine what you were doing and where you were doing it at. If I was in Texas and I was doing enduro races there, I think the 27.5 would be the best that it could be at 64 degrees. If I was in the Pacific Northwest and trying to do enduro races there, I think the 29er at 64 degrees would probably be the best of best. 63 and 63.5. 63, first of all, is for park days and shuttle days, like, only. And 63.5, I suppose, if you got some really tech-nar stuff that you're doing with a 29er, like, that makes sense to me. I don't think 63 in the Mullet For this bike, I don't know if that makes sense to be doing that in a race, because it feels with that little 4 millimeters of chainstay length in the rear at 64, I think would be better in any conditions, mullet or full 29er. If you're gonna race at that, it just feels like at 64 flat, the suspension is just way more reactive. Same thing at 63. I noticed at 63 with the mullet, something with that rear chainstay, I really putting it on that, just makes the suspension overall just way more reactive and just plushens up the bike, if that makes sense. Also, by the way, I did check my sag points, and they are dead money. 30% in the rear, 25 in the front, and the bike flies, just rips at that. And I think that this bike overall, I shouldn't say that. I just really like this bike at 64 degrees, whether it's a 29er or a full mullet setup. And I still have 65 and 65.5 to go through and see how I like those. I have no idea, because I'm starting from the bottom and going up, or starting from the slackest going to the steepest. Is that right? Yeah. Anyways, I guess you can consider that my conclusion, on top of talking about the downhill of this bike, you know, the descent on this bike, because I really like it. And like I said, I really think it's the best that this bike can be. I don't know, there's no way that 65.5 or 65 flat is going to be better whenever it comes to descending. You might put an emphasis on more fun. You know what? I keep talking, but I keep reminiscing about the ride. You know, the bike has got so much pop still at 64, and it's a pretty light and nimble bike to begin with. And being that in a mullet at 64, I am definitely going to say feels more agile and lively on the in all situations than the 29er, for sure, unless you're just going down some really tech-nar stuff. But I went down a pretty tech flow trail, you know, that I'm going to show you guys here, or that I showed you guys, and you know, it really came out of that thing. It really came out of that really good. And you know, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but the rear tire at this head tube angle in the 29er and in the 27.5, the mullet, both of those head tube angles and both of those tire settings don't hang up. Or if they do, it's like, it's probably more because of me, because I took a bad line choice, or I slowed down too much, or whatever the factor is. It's just like, when going up, if you're going up and you're keeping your cadence or your speed, you know, you're keeping your momentum, it doesn't seem to get hung up in the pockets like it does in other head tube angles, 29er or 27.5, it doesn't matter. And whenever you're going back downhill, like, of course, like, there's very few situations where you're going to notice that, because you're always wanting to try to keep some kind of momentum, even when you're going down the steepest, techiest stuff. If you don't know already by now, momentum is your friend whenever you're going down steep tech. Trust me, let off the brakes. I can't stress you guys enough on how good this bike feels at 64. You just have got to try it yourself, man. If you got one of these, or if you're looking at getting one, like, if you're on the cusp if you're on the cusp of getting a new bike, right, and you still want to keep the bike a trail bike, but you might think about doing some enduro racing, and you might go to the park, you know, a few times a year, the bike parks a few times a year, I don't know why you don't own one of these bikes. unless you already have a bike for those other situations, because this bike, man, is just like the one quiver bike. With that being said, I really hope you guys liked the video. If you can do me a favor, still, I'm almost there. And I really appreciate you guys that have subscribed since watching these videos as of recent. But I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers. So please hit that subscribe button. Throw me some comments down below. I love to talk about bikes. Anything to do with this head tube angle or any other head tube angle. And peace out. Go ride your bike.